Live from the broadcast studios of the Bay Observer, this is a Bay Observer podcast. And now, here is your host, the publisher of the Bay Observer, John Best.
Welcome to another edition of Bay Observer Broadcasting. Our guest today is the leader of the Ontario Liberal Party, Stephen Del Duca. Mr. Del Duca was first elected to the legislature in 2012 and was appointed Minister of Transport shortly thereafter, and later served as Economic Development Minister. And in March of this year, following the 2018 election, he was elected the leader of the Ontario Liberals. So welcome, Mr. Del Duca.
It's great to be on with you. Thanks so much.
I guess the first question I would ask, I know you've been, since you've become leader, I know you've been traveling around the province, meeting with liberals, local liberals. What are they telling you about where they want to see the party going?
Well, I actually won the leadership on Saturday, March the 7th, and was able to go back out on the road the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of that week. So the 9th, 10th, 11th. And by the time we got home from Thunder Bay on the 11th, it was pretty apparent that the COVID-19 or the coronavirus was going to be disrupting a lot of our lives and our economy and so much more. And so we paused my touring on the 11th or 12th and didn't start it again until a few weeks ago. So for 4 or 5 months, my touring was largely based here from home. Like so many other Ontarians, it was touring through a computer screen. We've started the touring again, like I said, a couple of weeks ago. I've been to Windsor, London, Stratford, Hamilton, Niagara, excuse me, in different places here in the GTA. And Liberals and others are telling me that they continue to be very nervous about the government's back to school plan. They tell me they're very concerned about whether or not we're going to have a safe recovery for the economy. And just generally speaking, it's a very nerve-wracking time for millions of Ontarians.
Looking back to the 2018 election where and this has happened, I think, to every major political party where they've been in power for a length of time and then they undergo a significant defeat that really creates the need to sort of rebuild. I'm thinking of what happened to the federal Conservatives in '94, and there's been many other examples. Do you think it was just a case of the party had been in power for 15 years, or do you think it maybe strayed a little too far from the center? What are you reading on sort of the ideological future of the party?
Yeah, I don't think I think obviously it was a very tough result in 2018. You're right. We'd been in power for 15 years. So there was a little bit of baggage that we had accumulated through that time. And so I think the people in Ontario on balance were ready for a change, which probably helps to explain why we lost the election. I think the difference between losing an election and getting outright decimated, which we did, there had to be something else at work as a result or as part and parcel of that. So during the leadership campaign itself, I met with thousands of Liberals across the province, and I think there was generally a feeling that it wasn't so much about an ideological shift, it was more about whether the people of this province felt that we were a little bit out of touch. And I think there's a natural inclination to over time grow out of touch with the people that you represent when you're in power for a very long stretch of time. I think our last couple of years in office, we became very focused on governing and listening to a small circle of people. By and large, most of them were kind of physically housed in the GTA, in the Toronto area. And people felt that we were out of touch with their day-to-day, month-to-month, year-to-year concerns. And that made it very easy for both Doug Ford and Andrea Horwath to kind of get into that space and tell people that Ontario Liberals were no longer on their side. So we have a lot of work ahead of us. There's a huge trust factor that we have to regain. We have to be able to have the confidence of the people of Ontario. And again, find a way to build that trust over the next 20 months or so. And that's the core focus of our work right now and my work right now.
Are you, it's now been 2 years. We're basically halfway through the current Ford mandate. Are you starting to see signs of life? What are you seeing and hearing in terms of the local riding associations?
Yeah, for sure. Lots of Liberals are encouraged again. They're enthusiastic again. We've made membership in our party free. We're the only major political party in Ontario that no longer has any kind of barrier to join the party in terms of costs. We've started our candidate nomination process. We did both of those things back on July the 1st. Our incumbents have started to get nominated. Now we're moving out into ridings that are currently not held by Liberals to start that nominating process. And so I think Liberals are feeling encouraged and enthusiastic. Of course, the COVID-19 pandemic certainly has disrupted everything, like I said earlier, including the way that we go about doing our politics. But Ontario Liberals are resilient and are very hardworking, and we will continue to put together a positive plan for the province's future so that we can put that plan in front of the people of Ontario come May, June 2022.
I think we've all discovered since the COVID, we've all learned how to use electronic media much better. In the normal business of politics and organization and that sort of thing, after this is hopefully over, do you still see some of this kind of messaging like we're doing now as playing a larger role in political organization?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a hybrid. I mean, Ontario is a physically huge province, and so we have some ridings that are the size of literally small countries. And so for Liberals who might be in some of those, for example, northern or rural ridings that are physically, again, very, very large, and we have small pockets of population, I think using various virtual platforms has actually been a lot easier for them, so that you can tie not only Liberals, but external partners and stakeholders into meetings instead of physically having you drive around and try to get people into one part of a particular riding. So I think it'll be a hybrid. I think sometimes we'll be able to use virtual platforms. Other times it would be nice to be back in a room, even if we're all 6 feet apart and wearing masks as we should be. There's still something to be said for the magic of that conventional way of doing politics, the feeding off one another and having a really vibrant clash of ideas that I'm looking forward to. But I think it'll be a hybrid, some virtual, some in person, and we'll go forward like that.
Do you see anything structurally in the way the party is organized, the way the riding associations, anything in the rules, anything in the sort of just the apparatus, I guess, of the party that might be changed to generate more interest or more involvement or more engagement at the local level?
Well, I think making the membership free was a huge transformational shift for the party. I turned 47 back in July. I've been involved in the party since I was 15. So that's 32 consecutive years. And I federally and provincially, I know our federal cousins made that shift to free membership before 2015. It's taken us a few years longer to get there, but that is, I don't want to underreport on the magnitude of that change. That is a huge shift for Ontario Liberals. I think it will help to kind of kick the doors down and make it much easier to join our party. I expect our party membership will continue to grow exponentially between now and the next election campaign. And I'm feeling pretty good about that. I think most of the work that we need to do now it's only about 20 months until the next election is scheduled to begin. I think a lot of the work we need to invest right now is about the ideas that we're going to put in front of the people of Ontario, because I'm absolutely convinced come the next election, people will understand what happened over the last 4 years. They'll understand what happened over the last 19 years. But what they're really going to want to see is who's got that positive plan to take Ontario forward into that post-pandemic world. And so I'm strongly urging Ontario Liberals, let's focus on building that roadmap that gives the people of this province a sense that we're truly on their side, that we're going to help give themselves, their kids and their grandkids the best future. And that's what we're focused on right now, putting that kind of blueprint together for the people of Ontario.
I guess it's fair to say there was a fair bit of surprise in terms of Doug Ford and the COVID and the response that he's generated. And I think if we look at polling and media, he's exceeded expectations in terms of being able to engage with people. Where do you see a weakness there that you might be able to do a better job than the current government?
Yeah, so I don't think it comes as any surprise that as a head of government, this has been happening right across Canada and at the national level. In the midst of a crisis, the people of our province, the people of our country understand that we need to rally together and rally around the flag, as the saying goes, and make sure that we are working together collaboratively and constructively. And so whether we're talking about premiers in virtually every other province, the Prime Minister, most of our municipal heads of government, who've been very much in the spotlight for 5 months as the people who are primarily communicating with us about what to do because of the pandemic, I don't think it's a surprise at all that pretty much across the board, with only a few exceptions, heads of government at all levels have favorable polls at this point in time. But we've seen over the last couple of weeks that the real Doug Ford is still there. And I don't say this in an over-the-top partisan way. You don't have to look any further than the government's half-baked plan for the return of school, which is coming up in only a couple of weeks, to realize that this is still a government that has priorities that are out of step with most Ontarians who simply wanted Doug Ford to step up with a reasonable amount of investment to keep class sizes small and protect our kids. And he failed to do so across the board. And so I think just a little bit below the pandemic surface, the real Doug Ford still lurks. And I think that over time, on the other side of the pandemic, we will see that they will revert back to the kind of reckless and dangerous decisions that they were making, taking Ontario down the wrong path prior to the pandemic striking.
Stephen Del Duca, we appreciate your time and your perspectives today. Thank you very much for joining us here at the Bay Observer.
Thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity. You take care and stay safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.